Very welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're continuing talking about impact and predominantly just talking about clearance, I suppose, in terms of the thing that's going to make a great impact is you've got to abide by the law of plane, which we're covering in other videos. So that will come as a separate video to this one, which basically means the club arc. So we can't necessarily swing too much excessively out to in and too much in to out. And then based upon that, that's how the club face will look in different ways, and we'll also talk about the release. But I think the biggest problem for a lot of amateur golfers is the lack of clearance coming in towards the hit and generally a lack of rotation in the golf swing anyway, and especially when it comes towards impact. So, you know, the hands need to be ahead of the club head at the point of impact, should we suggest. And the way that's going to happen is very much in the functionality of the trail arm. The hips need to be open to some degree, and shoulders would be maybe slightly open, pretty square. Chest would be open as well, coming in towards this impact area. So that's basically what needs to happen at impact. What also needs to happen in post-impact position is that basically the club needs to keep following its journey through on plane. And you want to do that without necessarily getting too flippy and potentially too rolly on it, in my opinion. So the only way you can do that is to create more space. So basically, if you blockade the space by not clearing and not rotating enough, then you're going to get basically stuck. And the only way the club can travel through on plane is with more of a kind of flipping, rolling sensation. And that's why we want to kind of feel like we're opening up the chest a lot more, because it means effectively you have to do less work with your hands. It doesn't mean you have to do no work with your hands, but you certainly potentially have to do less. Now, we're talking about this sort of feeling of weightlessness in this left-hand side. So as I kind of swing up to the top, operating in a pretty traditional backswing position, the weight is predominantly on my trail side. As I transition, even though as I re-establish myself back in towards the centre of the golf swing, my weight still stays predominantly in the trail side. It's not until later in the swing where the weight would re-establish itself back in towards the left. So as I kind of start to enter in towards the pre-impact hit. Now as we get into this sort of journey into the golf swing, theoretically what needs to happen is a few things, because if I kind of drop my hands down, the club would bottom out. So the first kind of thing that needs to happen is the shoulder needs to go back up and behind you. What we've also said is that basically if I was to throw the club down the range, you'd open up your chest to throw it down in that sort of fashion. You wouldn't necessarily keep your chest here and throw it that way, because you'd find that it would probably go up in towards the ceiling. So as we come down, we need to feel that the lead leg would straighten and the lead shoulder basically would be moving, should we say, more back and behind you, because when you get set up, your shoulder will rotate, should we say, whatever, under your chin, and then in transition it will potentially drop back as it moves laterally, because you'll rotate back in posture, and then it comes more back up and behind you in towards that hit. So one of the key things, if you were to video your swing, or at least rehearse in a mirror, and I'd probably go with the latter actually, I'd probably say rehearse in a mirror, is that if you can draw a line vertically, and this is the only tricky thing about when you're practicing in mirrors, because from your perspective the lines will be slightly different, but and when you ever go with that you'll understand what I mean. But if you were to kind of draw a line vertically through that lead ankle, basically at the point of impact, or at least should we say post impact, you would want your hands, your lead shoulder and your lead hip along that low point line. That essentially is what it is about in terms of controlling contact and that sort of moment of truth in terms of the hit. If you don't get that relationship, and let's say the lead hip surpasses that and the shoulder drops back and your hands are back, then you're going to be inconsistent when it comes to contact, well, and impact essentially. So I think it's about now rehearsing a lot more at home, doing a lot more what we class as kind of motor imagery, and it proves its weight in gold dramatically. I've recently kind of changed the way that I do a lot of my online lessons, and rather than just kind of telling people what they're doing and how to do it, we're creating more of like a little community where I'm kind of just asking people to show me something. So if somebody kind of does this, I can easily go, well, yeah, you need to stay more downward and you need to clear and all this sort of stuff. But if they go down the range, they generally fail. What they're starting to do is they're starting to just do stuff at home, and I'm like, can you just show me this? And they start to show me, and then they can see the positive imagery back, and then you can start to resemble a feeling, and all of a sudden you're starting to really create a snowball effect in terms of the progression. And this can 100% happen for you guys as well. So the reference is that, depending on the grip, but let's just go for the reference, is that post-impact the back of your wrist would be potentially pointing towards the target, not if you grip it stronger. But what you do want is you want your lead shoulder and your lead hip back over that ankle line, predominantly for irons. Driver, it'd be further back, but that would be potentially due to the setter position would change. And I think that is a really important thing to do. So that's your imagery side of it. The flip side to that is when you do go to experiment with hitting balls, it goes back to that up, down, and then around and up feeling. So the hit really needs to feel up and through. And a great thing, if you don't already, which I think a lot of us do, watch great golf swings. Watch the likes of, you know, your kind of McIlroy as he swings through, and the likes of your Tiger as he kind of explodes up. Because the more that you watch that, the more that you're going to associate to it strongly as well. And again, that sort of visual learning will massively benefit a lot of golfers out there. You know, I remember as a young kid, you just stand there trying to emulate the swing of Tiger Woods. That was all I ever did, you know, and you'd kind of end up mimicking what he was kind of doing. It's not until you kind of get a little bit older where you kind of find your own swing a little bit more. But the point is, impact, post-impact, that's the position. So you basically need to be able to demonstrate that position similar to what I'm showcasing now. The more that you do that, the more you're going to get a feeling. The feeling in the post-impact will be that obviously you're opening up and retracting back, very much the same as if you were to throw a club down the driving range. And if you can start to do that and put some of these pieces together, then you're going to start to improve that impact area. You're going to start to improve that clearance. It's going to be a much better ability to stay on plane, less manipulation of the hands, and just a general much better hitting, whoever you are. Senior golfer, losing balance, try not to let it get worse and just be mindful of it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Always appreciate a thumbs up. Remember, videos come out on a pretty frequent basis, to be honest with you. And the reason for that is so that it can just kind of keep reconfirming either what it is that you already know, or if you're new to the channel, then we can just kind of go on this learning journey together as well. Got some cool content coming up over the upcoming weeks. As soon as the weather turns here, going to start talking about programs of breaking 100, 90, 80 and 70, and talking about the things you need to do to accustom that. So basically, to make sure you don't miss any more videos, press that subscribe button. Catch you with you soon.